I feel like there's a conversation the Xbox community need to have, and maybe gamers in general that keep up with the news that's going on. And that conversation is Xbox and the studios that they own currently, from Player Games to the Initiative to 343. I want to talk about that and talk about maybe things need to change how they manage these studios. But before we get on to the video, definitely hit that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. You can always subscribe to the channel for weekly content. And don't forget to go over there and follow me at Twitter at LordAddictILP. And you can also follow me on Twitch. And without any further ado, let's talk about Xbox and their first-party studios. What's going on, you guys? Gaming Addict here, coming at you for another video. You guys pretty much know where this is going to. This morning, I woke up to some news that the Initiative has lost a lot of its key components in terms of staff and developers in general over the past 12 months. Now, there are caveats to maybe why this happened, but I'm not going to go out there and act like I know exactly what's going on in terms of the Initiative, and I'm not going to act like I know what it's like to run a studio in general. I'm just speaking from an outside perspective looking in. So first off, let's talk about 343 before we really go over the Initiative and talk about whether or not what's going on over there is related to Microsoft and their reach in terms of them being hands-on when it comes to their studios. For those of you that's known and it's not living under a rock, you know that the Initiative and 343 and Rare to a point has been having a lot of issues with progression on their games. Now we see with 343 they finally got Halo Infinite out, but we all found out relatively soon afterwards that just because the project they gave us was pretty good at launch doesn't mean necessarily that it was ready to come out. We've had a few months of really no updates whatsoever from 343. Now there's multiple reasons that this could have happened. We do live in a pandemic, you got to keep that in mind, and also we got to keep in mind that Microsoft let them create the Slipspace engine, and regardless how you feel about that engine, we haven't really seen it used too much besides Halo Infinite. Maybe we can get another studio at Microsoft to use this engine to see exactly how diverse it is and how versatile this actual engine is that they created. And that takes time. That probably took the first couple years of development on the game in general. Now, we don't know exactly what happened, how long it took, how long the actual development of Halo Infinite was. But we do know that when you create an engine like that, it does take a good amount of time. So I would say a year to 2 years minimum it took to make this engine. One thing that we do need to keep in mind is this isn't the standard Halo game as well. And I know that people have a lot of concerning when it comes to where the direction Halo's going, but you got to look at it from the developer's perspective as well. They're not used to doing this games as a service. Sure, I've always felt like Halo was always a games as a service, but it was done differently like it was back in the day than it is now, and how games as a service is done in general. Now, I'm not going to go out here and try to say that there's not mismanagement being done at 343. I do feel like there is some of that going down, but I think there's a lot of factors that went into the position that Halo is in currently. I'm not going to go too much into what I think and what I know, because at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning of the video, I am not in these studios. I don't know what it's like to run a studio with 200, 300, 400 plus people, so I'm not going to act like I do know, but I'm just looking at it from my perspective as a consumer and someone that covers the industry. It's not a good look when you constantly are having change in leadership and you're having these high tier people leave. It's not a good look, but I don't want to say that we need to be 100% on the fact that we need to automatically assume that it's doomsday over there. I don't think we're to that point, because I think Halo Infinite gave a lot of people that perspective that it's like, look, we're going to give you a good product. Let's hope that you can deliver into the future, soon future, hopefully near future. 343 definitely has a lot of issues that's going on over there. I do feel like I mentioned previously, I think it's a combination of bad management, the pandemic that slowed development in general down, and just change of leadership, and variables like that is what led to 343 being how it is. Now clearly there needs to be changes that's done there. Hopefully when they start getting the ball running, they'll be able to get to a pretty consistent amount of content coming out relatively soon. There definitely shouldn't be anywhere from 6 months to a year before you see consistent updates on 343. Now let's talk about Rare. For those of you that don't know, Rare made Banjo-Kazooie, they made Conquer, and they made their previous game Sea of Thieves. Now let's talk about what Everwild is, because that's their new game. Everwild was announced a few years ago, and we've not seen a whole lot on it. In fact, we've heard rumors that the game has been soft rebooted because they don't know what they want to do with the game, and we're probably not going to see it anytime soon. So when you look at something like this, here's where I stand with Everwild. I feel like Everwild is in the same state that maybe Sea of Thieves was in, because if you remember, Sea of Thieves launched with pretty bare minimum of content at launch. There wasn't a lot there. I feel like Microsoft let them release that in that kind of state for multiple reasons. One thing, this is the kind of game that you build with the community, and when you don't have a community playing this game, then you can't really take feedback to creating what the community wants. It's what the type of game this is. Now, I don't agree with releasing the game in that state to build on later. I think you need to put it in some kind of preview program you can build it at a reduced cost with the community, and when you feel comfortable and confident enough that you have a solid game, or at least a solid foundation to sell at a vanilla cost, that is when you come out on the market itself for full retail value. They didn't do this with Sea of Thieves, and I hope that if they do something like that, it needs to be done with Everwild, because that's the type of program that's really going to help push this game to the next level. Now, out of the Initiative, 343, and Rare, I feel like Rare is making such unique type of games that it's going to be almost impossible to completely find out exactly what you want to build a game in the foundation it lasts on. I think that's probably the reason you see a lot of these shifting going on. Now, they obviously are still working on Sea of Thieves, so you don't have the entire studio make it Everwild, but regardless, there is probably a little mismanagement going on there to lead to such a drastic change and soft reboot the game. We can't ignore that, but I can't. Out of all these studios, Rare is the one that I feel is the hardest to really get information on, and I know nothing about this game, so I have absolutely zero context to what's going on with Everwild. But in terms of looking on the outside looking in, it does look like it's just like, look, this is an ambitious game. We want to step back and make sure, is this something we really want to make, or do we want to change the foundation up before we get too far in development where we can't do it? And I think that might be what you see with Everwild. I don't know though. That's just my opinion. Let's talk about the star of the video, The Initiative. For those of you who don't know, The Initiative was created from scratch with David Gallagher or Daryl Gallagher. It's probably Daryl, I don't know. One of those two names. He is the person that was recently over games like the Tomb Raider games. Now, the way all of this seemed to have started is when they were talking to him a few years ago, he pitched a game to them that we now know is Perfect Dark, and they liked the concept so much they gave him an entire studio. Now, I'm not going to act like I know what's going on with The Initiative. I don't know what it's like to build a studio from the ground up. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you have to go into to build a studio from the ground up. You have to get the management, then you have to get the people that work for that management. I feel like that's going to take probably a year and a half to 2 years minimum to really get a grasp on building a studio and hiring talent. Keep in mind, talent don't all live in one state. They live across the world. So especially before the pandemic, where it wasn't so easy to do remote access stuff, your talented pool was kind of limited. Now, they are in a good area where they have a lot of talent that's around them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can get them, because the good talent is working for another company. Now, they did go out and they got something from, Naughty Dog, these top tier companies that's in the industry, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything either, because regardless how many talent, how good a talent you get, you got to make sure there's good chemistry between everyone, where they can work as a cohesive team and get these things done, get these projects done, hit these deadlines. And it looks like that wasn't happening with the initiative. We've seen in the past 12 months that they've lost a lot of the original team and that huge talent pool that they went out and got. Now, for those of you that don't know, they actually went out and they got a studio named Crystal Dynamic, and that was David Gallagher's, like Daryl Gallagher, David Gallagher, I don't know. That was that past studio that they used to work with. That was the studio that he was over. So a lot of people, including myself, felt like this is good because these people are going to have good chemistry with him because they've worked with him before. Now, it does look like that maybe there was some precautions and some backlash that happened with that. I feel like that many people leaving the initiative in the past year, there had to have been a reason for it. And I think there's a good chance that there was some conflict between Crystal Dynamics and the initiative. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with the initiative or Crystal Dynamic after Perfect Dart is done. So for all we know, they could be looking at Crystal Dynamic to buy them, to add them to the initiative. Now, obviously, when it comes to the management type, they're going to have a lot of titles that's already filled at the initiative that have that exact same title at Crystal Dynamics. Now, I don't know exactly if that's going on here, and I don't know what is being said behind closed doors, but something's clearly wrong. This many top level people leaving with the initiative screams to me that there's something going on behind the scenes that a lot of people aren't liking. People are leaving, going to the previous studios that they used to belong to, and they're going to new studios entirely. And it's happened a lot in the next 12 months. And I feel like that's probably around the time Crystal Dynamics joined the team to help make Perfect Dart. Now, we don't know exactly what's going on with the initiative or Crystal Dynamics. Maybe they've already merged them, and that's probably why you're seeing this massive amount of people. When you're working with new people, you generally will leave regardless if they bought Crystal Dynamics or not yet. When you're working with new people, you're gonna butt heads, and if you don't feel like your opinions being taken in a good positive way, you're gonna go look for somewhere where you feel appreciated. I don't know if this is going on with the initiative, but I do feel like when you have two studios working together on one title and there's going to be a lot of back and forth going on, you're going to have creative differences that's going on with them. Now, I don't know if Crystal Dynamics is winning the creative freedom tug or in the initiative. One would think the initiative would win that because they're the original studio on the project, but I don't know. All we do know is there is a creative team such as Crystal Dynamic that did good work on Tomb Raider. So maybe Microsoft favors them a lot more. Maybe it's Daryl or David Gallagher in general that favors that studio because he knows them, he's worked with them, so he takes their opinion more. Maybe people at the initiative got upset over that. Now, let's talk about the overall perspective of going on with Microsoft and their first party studios. Microsoft needs to do a better job at having a good middle ground balance to monitoring these studios but allowing them to have their creative freedom. I feel like it's neither one or the other right now with Microsoft. You need to be able to monitor these because they're still spending your money at the end of the day. I don't understand why you wouldn't at least monitor. There's a difference between restricting creative freedom and just making sure people are on track. When you're spending this kind of money and you're missing deadlines, something should be done. There should be some kind of repercussions. I'm not saying fire people, but there needs to be a little bit more, hands-on with Microsoft. Now, I'm not saying go out there and be like, yo, we want you to make this game, we want you to make that game, because I feel like that's a lot of the issues Microsoft had in the past. But we need to start seeing more fruits of these studios, and until you start showing them that you need these done and you're not joking, I feel like some of them might take advantage of you. Now, like I said, I don't know what's going on with Microsoft and their first-party studios. I'm not there to say that all of them are messed up. When you own 30 plus studios, or maybe 30 plus studios, we don't know if the Activision deal is going to actually go through or not. I'm pretty sure it is, but when you own this many studios, you're going to have some of them that's upset, some of them that's not doing what they're supposed to. That doesn't necessarily mean that all of them aren't going to do what they're supposed to. It just means some of them are falling behind and they need help in terms of neither more money to hire more people to help offset that work balance, or they need better management to help with the work balance. and help direct the work balance. So it's like I said, I don't know what's going on at Microsoft, but I do feel like we need to be a little bit more open on getting more information before we start painting pictures that we don't know what it is. None of us know what's going on at these studios besides the studios themselves and Microsoft. And I will say that you need to be cautious. You need to be cautious towards those games. Maybe wait for the reviews, or wait for a couple of your friends or your favorite YouTubers that is going to review the game before you go out there and commit to buying the game. But I won't go as far as say that these studios are doomed or that, because I'm pretty sure that some of them just had pandemic issues. People need to stop acting like the pandemic didn't drastically stop a lot of these games from coming out. The pandemic probably delayed the majority of games that was supposed to come out 6 months to a year. That's a long time. Keep in mind, some of these studios couldn't even work because they're so heavily on mocapping that they weren't allowed to be at the studio to mocap. That's a kind of huge deal if you can't do that. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do some of these at home. You can. And Microsoft and the industry in general did a decent job going from working in the office to remote, but at the end of the day, it's not the same thing. There's going to be a transition period where you're not used to working from home on this type of scale that probably took them 6 months to even remotely get the feeling of. Now, I do feel like once this pandemic is over, the industry is going to be a better place because you can do more remote stuff, because the pandemic showed a lot of studios that this can be done. It's just you have to do it right. And some studios probably don't even have it right to this day. I'm sure there are some studios that struggle with the pandemic. Maybe they're not, up to date on technology as well as some of these big giant companies, and they are struggling. But, tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think that there's a huge issue going on with Microsoft and their first party? I've went over a couple of the studios. I know there's more scenarios and issues out there in the Microsoft kingdom, we'll call it, with all these first party studios, but these are the ones I felt needed to highlight the most. But tell me what you guys think in the comment section below, and until next time, this is Gaming Addict. I'm out of here. Peace.